Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us at the Nashville TUG virtual user group meeting. Our leadership team and plenty of guests are here with us, and we are going to get started. First thing is to share some announcements and community spotlights, led by Jim Daner. Jim, can you see him sharing the slideshow? Are you on mute? Jim.
I didn't mute Jim. That's not my fault.
Did we lose Jim? He's there. Okay, well.
Okay, I'm sorry, guys. Hey, real quick, and this is going to be real quick. We've got an opportunity for a special event in May where the Atlanta TUG has Francois, the Chief Product Officer for Tableau, and he's going to be answering questions. And we have the opportunity as a group to submit one question. And there's a link here where you can see where the Francois question, we're asking you to submit your question. We can only submit one. And if we select your question, we'll give you a $25 gift certificate. You're also going to be getting an invitation to this meeting. It's on the 24th of May. You're going to be getting an invitation to the meeting within a couple of days here. I'm going to skip down over a couple things here in the interest of time. Some of this you've seen before. People in Nashville, there is still a job opening at A.O. Smith for a business analyst. So if you're looking for work and you're here in Nashville, contact A.O. Smith. Tomorrow, the fourth session of Zero to Zen is going to be live tomorrow. There's still a few seats open. We've got like 150 people reserved for it, so there's still a few seats open. It's going to be on LODs and table calculation. So you still have time to sign up. That link is live also that you see down there for Zero to Zen. Nick, back to you, bud.
Thanks. Yeah, that is it for now of our items, and we will put this PowerPoint in the chat before the meeting's over. All right. Next up, we have the remainder of the community moment. Right, Jim? Actually, that's for Lindsay.
Yeah, Lindsay's going to do the introduction.
Lindsay, our community conversation. Would you like to introduce?
Yes. I am here to introduce Charreau. I invited her after learning about her work. She is the senior data scientist at the Data Science Institute at Vanderbilt. In her current role, she leads several data science projects across a spectrum of disciplines using machine learning and deep learning. She's a consultant for researchers and industrial organizations to help them form, plan, evaluate, and reach their data-driven academic or business objectives. She strives to empower students, researchers, industrial professionals, and others to responsibly, confidently, and ethically use data science to reach their academic and business goals. She's a lifelong Commodore, earning her doctorate, master's, and bachelor's degrees in engineering from Vanderbilt. And she's here with us today to share with us the local community group in Nashville called Women in Data Science. Welcome to the group, Charreau.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. Can you all see my screen? It should be the PowerPoint. Okay, great. Well, as Lindsay said, my name is Charreau Bell, and I'm the senior data scientist at the Data Science Institute at Vanderbilt. And thank you so much for inviting me to join your session today to talk a little bit more about the Women in Data Science organization overall, and also what we're doing currently within our organization in Nashville. We're currently hosted primarily by Vanderbilt right now, but we're always looking for future collaborators for our next conference and meetings, so please feel free to reach out to me with your interest. But before we start off, let's talk a little bit more about the Women in Data Science organization and the motivation for this organization. Get to that next slide. All right, there we go. So Wiz distributes some of these slides so that the ambassadors can provide a little bit of context for the organization. And these are some of the slides I'll be using today. And as we know, several efforts have been made to mitigate some of the challenges with the lack of recruitment and retention of women in STEM fields in general. So as you can see here, up to 1983, women were in more technical fields, and then like that kind of started dropping off even as early as 1985. And this was as of 2010, which I understand was more than a decade ago, but hopefully there'll be a few more studies so we can see how things are going. Luckily, it looks like things like stop decreasing specifically and like at least tabled out, but we can see that there are fewer graduates from CS fields as opposed to other types of fields that are relatively similar. A more updated slide would be this snapshot from 2017. As we can see, we have, again, 3 different STEM-related fields, but in 2016, the percentage of degrees awarded to women had actually decreased in 2 of these fields. And namely, those fields are computer science and mathematics, which form pretty much the foundation of data science. And so that's really not a great situation for data science and the state of women of data science in general. Furthermore, we can also see that, again, we're back to 2010, so hopefully we'll have something more updated afterwards. But we can see that there's still some real challenges in terms of retention in women in engineering in the years after graduation. So these would be the years after graduation with a bachelor's degree. And for men, we can see that, you know, stick around. And then for women in the yellow, not sticking around, especially up into about 30 years after graduation. Furthermore, in terms of representation of the roles of women in industry and in the workplace, as of 2019, so that's pretty, I mean, that's recently-ish, we can see that we still have some disparities in the amount and the number and percentage of women, especially in the higher roles in terms of VP and the C-suite. But we can see that that has a real differential as we look in the workplace. So this is a non-trivial difference. Also, there is some struggle when it comes to women speaking in technical conferences. So at technical conferences, women really don't appear to be getting their fair share of their voice in the technical aspects. And the women organizing Stanford WIDS saw this all over the world. For example, there was a conference at Stanford that featured only male speakers. And when they asked the organizers why there were no women, they were like, oh, this specific woman wasn't available. And it seemed as if they thought that she was the only woman out of all of the women that are in STEM at Stanford that would be able to give a presentation. Also, we can see here that, you know, we have this presentation on women in math, but there are no women there. And we can see another example from the social good project at Stanford, where there's just very, very few women presenters. And so this is not a knock on men, but we always as a society have room for improvement. And the organizers of WIDS really saw this. So the reason that they created WIDS was actually for those exact 3 purposes. So it began with the 3 goals of inspiring women to join the field. So, you know, encouraging young women, encouraging people who are going to college to join STEM fields and specifically data science fields. And also to educate people regardless of gender. So I'll be talking today a little bit about our conference, and we certainly had people of all genders joining our conference and hearing the presenters and participating. Also, the goal is a second tertiary goal is to support women in the field. Sometimes things can be a little bit isolating, and so maybe you might be the only woman in your workplace, and it's great to really get input from other women about their experiences and also just form a really great technical friend. So someone that you can go to or someone that can come to you in the case that you need advice or, you know, a second look at some technical things. So let's see. So WIDS is started, I think, just at Stanford, and then it spread and has spread completely worldwide. Last year, there was a complete global event, and it was completely virtual. And so it ended up that we were able to watch the conference go around the world for 24 hours. So it was hosted on International Women's Day on March 8th, and it was a combination of WIDS Stanford with the regional events all across the globe. So the regional events really help to connect women in data science with other women but also showcase the technical skill, honors, and broadcast the capabilities that women are sometimes a little reticent to talk about. So let's talk about WIDS Nashville, which was very exciting. So it was a very successful event, if I may say so myself, as one of the co-hosts. I think we had about 150 people attend virtually. And I think some of the success had to do with the different types of events that we hosted. So of course, we watched the WIDS keynotes, which had several speakers from industry and the FANG companies. But one thing that was really awesome is the ability for people to really talk to the chat. So, the speaker would be talking about, something that they've implemented, or, how to implement fairness in models. People would say, oh, that's a really great idea. I can't wait to integrate that into my work. And then people would be like, oh my gosh, I do similar work. Let's talk. And it was a really great time of learning and building information and connections. Our second event, which was, I think it's hard for me to say which one of our events was my favorite, but it was something called community building, where the focus really was networking and supporting each other. And so basically what we did is we broke out into some different breakout rooms randomly. So 5 people were assigned to each room. And then we all just kind of discussed like a lighthearted question, as you can see here, what are you doing in your spare time? And then a real question of substance. So what challenges have you faced in data science and how have you overcome them? So I think through exploring those things with other women, we were really able to support each other and learn more about what other people experiences and how they've overcome those things. This was a great event. I met people in those groups that I now have working relationships with, and it was also great to catch up with old friends. So I think in general, just having community building parts of one's any events that one has is really helpful in forming bonds and networking for people that you can work with in the future or currently. So then we had our feature talks, which is where we had women in the field come and talk about their experiences and their actual research and present results of their data science work. And it was so cool to see because it was people in all spectrums of kind of the life phases. So we had like very established professors, we had people from nonprofits, we had undergraduates, we had graduate students. So we had all these different types of people presenting their work. And it was great to see how people asked them questions and were really inspired by what they were able to do at either such a young age or how much they were able to accomplish by their current role. So, and WIDS, again, is not meant to be exclusive in the sense that it's anti-men or doesn't allow men at events. We definitely welcome people of all genders, but it was very cool to see a whole panel and a whole set of feature talks by women. And I think that was very inspiring to all of us. Then we had a career panel, which was such a great time as well. Something that was really fun about this was that we were able to send Tips Treats, so a set of cookies, to all the participants that registered at a specific time. So although we were virtual, we called it a dessert reception. So we all ate the cookies and we had a career panel. And that really helped us all to ask questions of established women data scientists across Nashville and academia. Some people transitioned from academia to industry and back and forth. And so it really helped to show younger students and people in all areas of their career what it can be like if one wants to transition through different areas of data science. So I said all of that to say, 1, to educate, but 2, that there are lots of ways that you can get involved with WIDS if that's something that you're interested in. So this is actually our first full year. That last conference that we put on March 8th was actually our first mini conference. The previous one was actually canceled due to COVID, but we just had our first one, and now we are looking for co-hosts for next year with other institutions or other industry partners, and we're looking for new ambassadors, we're looking for presenters, for panelists for our conference next year. So if you work with data science, and it seems like you do, being within Tableau, and you would like to be involved in any of those things, that would be such a great asset to, I think, all of Nashville to be able to see. Also, next year, we're looking to co-hosting with Belmont or MTSU or Lipscomb. So if there's anyone from those institutions here, please feel free to reach out. We're really excited to have more events in general, so more events throughout the year, but also for the actual conference, it would be great to have different like threads of conversation. So maybe there would be a thread on a day or a set of sessions about Tableau, and then maybe one about R, and then maybe one about like accelerating workflows or what have you. So if you would like to know or contact me more or find out more about this, please feel free to email me at my Vanderbilt address. It's just c.bell@vanderbilt.edu. By the way, if you get an answer from someone whose name is Charleston, that will be my brother. He's also at Vanderbilt, and we both forget each other's email addresses and end up sending out the wrong one. So if he answers, just put an S there, or he'll tell you what to do. All right. Well, thank you for the invitation. I think I'm running over a little bit. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. And thanks again for inviting me today.
Well done. Thank you, Charreau. Next up, we have usability testing for Tableau dashboards presented by Roshni. She is an MIT employee who has found her calling, making boring fundraiser and MIT data interesting for her stakeholders. Roshni,
I love the intro. I hope you guys can see the screen.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks. So I'm a data analyst. I play with data all day long and help people get their data. So I work in research development or advancement, which is just a fancy way of saying fundraising. And I want to talk about how we've used usability testing for some of our recent projects. So fundraisers, they're like salespeople. They have a portfolio of prospects or prospective donors. They're like sales leads. They have annual fundraising goals. And we were tasked with creating a Tableau dashboard to help fundraisers and their managers manage those portfolios and monitor their performance. We call it the Fundraiser Portfolio Tool, or FPT. I'm going to say FPT a gajillion times, so remember that acronym. And though we've had Tableau for years, Tableau is still a new tool for many of our users. We had assumed on previous projects that people would just get filters, they would get charts, they would get that they could click on things. But what ended up happening in the real world was they didn't get it. They didn't realize, hey, I can click on something. And since this project was a very visible project, it was open to about 500 users across the advancement community. We wanted to make sure that we built something that actually worked for our users, that we were on the right track. Building the right product. And so that's how we started doing usability testing. So I'm going to go through what usability testing it is, how we do it, and then also show you a before and after. I may cut some things just in the interest of time, but if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat or email me after the fact. So what is usability testing? A lot of times when I tell people, hey, we should do usability testing, what data and IT folks generally hear is, oh, right, we should do user acceptance testing. That's not it. Usability testing and user acceptance testing are two very different things. In user acceptance testing, you're more or less doing functionality testing. You're figuring out if what you built was built correctly, meaning it met the specs, it's performant, the data loads quickly, it refreshes quickly when you apply filters, extracts refresh in an acceptable time, and all the data is validated. The bottom lines add up the way they should and all of that. You're basically asking the question, does it work? And that's what we had done in the past. We built the product right. But what we later learned with those projects is that users, they weren't digging what we had built. Features went unused, things were too complicated, but we didn't know it, or the projects just weren't useful. We didn't ask the question of whether the product worked for our users. So that's how we introduced usability testing into our user testing process. So in usability testing, you're going for three things. You observe users as they're performing real tasks, so you can find out if what we're building is intuitive and easy to use. And if it's not easy to use initially, is it easy to learn to use? We want to know, does it help the users reach their goals? It's one thing to say the tool can do this. It's another thing to say the user can do this thing with the tool. And do they actually succeed when using the tool? And finally, we asked if the users actually want to use it, because you can build something with all the knobs and whistles, but if it's slow as sin, they're not going to want to use it. They're going to walk away and be like, I'm done. Give me an Excel spreadsheet. So usability testing helps us build the right product as opposed to building the product right. And it's something that's done all the time for websites and for mobile apps. Is it easy to log in, to buy a product, to find X on the website or in the app? It's also used for physical products. So things like coffee makers, does the coffee maker have the right buttons in the right place? Is a filter easy to use and or replace? So for the Fundraiser portfolio tool, we did some requirements gathering as we do for everything. And we had a decent idea, we thought, of the data that we needed, the metrics, what needed to be in the tool. And we had some disagreements, in fact, about how the data should be presented. We needed to figure out, instead of just fighting opinions back and forth, we needed to figure out a way to understand how our users actually interpreted the charts that we were showing them and how they actually interacted with all the filters and controls in Tableau. And we needed to use what we learned to either confirm or our design choices or to revise them in an iterative build process. And so as we were having these conversations about these mocked up dashboards, all I can think of is, hey, maybe we can usability test Tableau dashboards. They're web-based on the server. They're interactive tools, so you can click on things and other things happen. And they have filters, like coffee makers. Apologize for the bad joke. And hey, look, that's almost like a Tableau workbook. So how do we do it? There are a ton of resources out in the world about how to do usability testing. Most of them are geared for websites and mobile apps. And a lot of the basics are the same for a Tableau dashboard as they are for those types of interfaces. But there are some things that you might want to be more careful about or do differently for data dashboards. And so I'm going to go through the basic process and sort of add in some, hey, for data, you might want to think about X, Y, or Z. So the basic process of usability testing is that you observe about 5 representative users as they attempt to perform specific tasks in whatever it is you're testing, whatever it is that you want to fix. We ask the user to think out loud as they go through these tasks that we've written so that we can understand why they clicked on something, what they were expecting to happen, how they're interpreting terminology or charts. And we stress that we're testing the product, we're not testing them, you can do no wrong, and that we want them to be open and honest, you can't hurt our feelings. To plan the test, you first start with a script. You need to figure out what is it that you're actually testing. So we identify what we want to test by first identifying what is the dashboard supposed to do? What is the goal of the dashboard? What should the user be able to accomplish on it? We also identify things that we're not sure about. Is there terminology that we're not quite clear on? Are there filters that we're not sure that they need or whether they can understand them? Are the charts that we chose the right ones to show the data for that particular purpose? We also want to learn from the users. Is there something about the process or the policy that this dashboard will fit into that we don't quite get, or that we think we get that we just want to confirm but didn't get a chance to do so, while we were, getting the requirements? So for all of those things, or as many of the ones that we can fit in, we write a series of tasks based on those goals. We try to have a mix of easy, medium, and hard, because if you just throw a bunch of hard stuff at people, they're going to get, annoyed and frustrated, and then you learn absolutely nothing from them, except that you know how to annoy and frustrate them. And then the script also has an intro and a closing, both of which are pretty canned, with maybe a few adjustments depending on what you're testing. So that's what you test. And then there's the how you test. And how you test is with people. You need a testing team. The facilitator or moderator is the one who wields the script. They ask the questions and they keep the conversation, or sorry, the testing going. And then the note taker, they take notes. They're not verbatim notes. They're a lot of times it's just, oh, they got stuck here, or they said this thing, quote. You also need a tester to test the test. It's like a dry run or a rehearsal to make sure that the script works, that it's within time, and that you're not forgetting anything major that you wanted to test. And then finally, you need your users. Again, 5 users. That's not that many. So why 5 users? In research by Jacob Nielsen, he's actually been able to figure out that, you could test something with 100 users, and within the first few users, chances are you've already identified the biggest issues. It's great to try to identify all the usability issues, but you're never going to do it. And even if you identify them all, you're never going to fix them all. So if you can focus on those top 3 to 5 things that are problems, and with just a handful of users, that's a better use of your time, and it can drastically improve the usability of whatever it is you're trying to fix. Another thing about those users, generally you want representative users, so people who will actually use the tool. And I think it's more important for data products than it is for a lot of websites or mobile apps. If you don't know someone, if you try to test with someone who doesn't know the terminology, especially in a business environment, their ability to actually understand how the tool fits into the workflow will be, it'll be really bad. Like they won't necessarily know that this term means this and this is when I will use it. And therefore this chart doesn't really show me what I want in the context of the task that I would normally be doing. And another thing with users is you also want to try to get real data that is relevant to them, if you can, because they'll be able to engage with it a little bit more than if you just threw random test data or data about someone else. If in our case, for example, we were using fundraisers react to their own data in a different way than they might someone else's data. So then you conduct the tests. There's a couple of different ways of doing moderated testing where you have that moderator asking the questions. In typical testing, you'll try to do a couple of scenarios at a time, and it's 30 minutes to 45, but we tend to leave an hour in case we have more questions or just want to have a conversation with the user. There's also guerrilla or intercept testing where you spend less time with each user because you're only asking them one scenario or asking them to go through one scenario, but you can get through more users in a shorter period of time and maybe, get different classes of users to test out different scenarios. Back in the day before COVID, we tried to always test in person because people were reluctant to do video chat, but hey, new world, everyone loves Zoom. So as long as you have screen and audio share, remote testing is a total possibility. And we ended up doing all of our testing for our version 2 of this tool last fall and summer using Zoom. There's also the option to record. We don't because there's paperwork involved, but we've also have a really tight turnaround between when we finish testing and when we actually start doing stuff based on the testing, that we've never actually had an opportunity where watching a recording would be possible or helpful. Okay, so I'm going to walk through the script really quickly. There's a lot here. This is the intro. Almost all of this text is all about telling the user how this will happen. We want them to think aloud. They can do no wrong. The tool might be broken, or may not be fully functional, and the data may be stale. And we want them to be honest and open with us. Of that entire block of text, only the small chunk here is something that we actually look at every time we run a new test to try to revamp it in case we need to say, hey, this is what this tool that we're testing is. Everything else is just canned and we just copy and paste from test to test. The intro is all about the moderator talking and sort of laying out how things are going to go. And then we transition into the user being sort of the focus. And we ask them questions to get them talking. If possible, you ask them questions that are related to the dashboard, like when was the last time you pulled data about this thing that you're now testing in this new dashboard? But the whole goal of it really is just to get them used to talking and to get the focus back on them. When you finally present the dashboard to them, the first thing you ask for is their first impressions. We want them to talk aloud and tell us, what strikes them about the page that they're looking at. What can they do there? What is the chart telling you? There have been times when we have forgotten that question of to give us your first impressions, and it's burned us in the end because we realized like halfway through the test that the user never really understood what they were looking at. So getting them to actually talk through, this is what this chart is telling me, helps them understand and get situated and puts them at ease a bit. And it also helps us make sure that the rest of the testing can actually go on as planned. So this is an example of a dashboard that we tested. It was probably one of our first dashboards in version 1. And it's just 6 tiles. They're organized by color and in rows. You click on a tile and detail pops up below it. So we built one scenario per tile. Our goal was to ask them, where would you go to find X, to see, did we get the name on the tile right? Because some of these terms were actually new terms that we were coining simply for this dashboard. We didn't have a socialized, phrase for some of these things before. So again, our first question is, where would you go for X? And then in order to get them to realize, hey, you can click a tile, or to see if they realize it, we ask them to pick a prospect or pick a proposal. And how do you know who the prospects or proposals are? Well, you have to click. You'll notice that we never actually asked them to click a filter or to press something or highlight something. We just said, hey, pick a prospect, because that's how they would actually go about it. In the real world, they'd be like, oh, there's 3 prospects without recent contacts. Who are those prospects? Let me look at each of those individually. And so we can figure out, do they get that, whether they can click or not. And like with, once you've gone through all your search scenarios, like with an interview, we close out the session saying, do you have any questions for me? And then thanking them. So it's a pretty simple process: intro, scenarios, and closing. but it's not. There's some challenges in the process because throughout the test, the user will ask you questions and you've got to be comfortable not answering those questions, which is really hard. So we often throw back the question, we boomerang it back to them. So if they ask, what does this button do? We might respond, what do you think that button does? What do you expect that button to do? Which can get really annoying and can also leave some questions on the table that we aren't able to answer during the testing that we'll then later catch up on during the closing. And I have an asterisk on the slide because usability testing it's not intended to be an interview or a conversation or user training, but parts of the testing can turn into these things and sometimes in the wrong place. But if you're good about it, you know, the beginning is a lot of interviewee stuff. The end, the closing is a lot of conversation. And also in the closing, you can find opportunities for user training in terms of, you know, if someone they got stuck somewhere or they asked, hey, can this thing also do this? You can use the closing to sort of show them, yeah, it can. Look at this cool thing that you didn't ask for, but, you know, or we didn't think to ask you about, but hey, yeah, it can do it. And, you know, there are lots of resources out there, and I'll, again, provide links at the end. The Nielsen-Norman Group, for example, has a lot of videos about how to be an effective moderator. But one of the best ways to get practice is actually to reach out in your organization to see if there's a UX or user research group and see if you can participate either as a participant or as part of the testing team or as an observer, just to hang out and watch and learn that way. Because a lot of UX folks, they're like the database community, you know, they're willing to share their methods and bring people into the fold because the better UX is better for all of us. So I have no idea how I'm doing with time. So I'm going to try to
3 minutes.
3 minutes. Okay.
Maybe 13. Okay.
Okay. So during usability testing, our big goal is to find the issues. So what's confusing, what's hard, you know, what do users like or not like about our what we've built them or what we're showing them. You know, we've heard comments like, this page makes me antsy. When, you know, I think we had a heat map with bright orange, like the Tableau default orange colors. And what we learned was just toning down that color and making it less saturated actually made the user feel less antsy when they were on the page. So it's not just, you know, what are the glaring errors, where are things breaking, but also like, how is it affecting the user's feelings. We also learned things like we can't use the word compare when we talk about comparing fundraisers because compare is a trigger word for our managers. Every fundraiser is different. Every portfolio is different. So we're never going to compare them apples to apples. But when we set comparisons in the context of, well, you see this happening with fundraiser X, and then you want to know, is that same thing happening with other fundraisers? That comparison becomes a lot more palatable to our managers. It also helps us with prioritization because we can see what's happening the most, where people are really, really getting stuck. It's great for building empathy because especially with developers, you kind of get to see people interacting with your tool and see how and where they run into trouble or where they find delight. And it helps with relationships because, you know, you're spending your time with your users and they see that you're actually invested in their outcomes, not necessarily just the product that you're building for them. I'm going to skip through all of this, but basically make sure you spend some time to debrief to go through all of the issues, every single one of them, even if they're repeating, and then prioritize them and build out the, you know, solutions for the ones that are sort of the most show-stopping ones. And a really quick before and after. So this is one of the first tabs we tested. In the top left, we've got a title and navigation. And what we learned was, you know, the navigation didn't tell you where people were, which page they were on, which was really confusing to our users. And the title sort of blended in with other things. So we worked with our design folks to redesign the page a little bit and make this thing look a little bit more like a website. We also had 3 filters at the top. The idea was the first filter, the one that's grayed out, is the one that would always apply to every single tab. The other 2 applied to most of the tabs in this workbook, but not this one. And so what we saw during testing was people kept trying to mess with those other 2 filters and getting frustrated when they didn't do anything, when in fact they weren't supposed to do anything. So we ended up like taking out some filters that we thought would be intelligent defaults that really just ended up being stupid defaults. We also had some data changes that ended up coming out of this round of testing. Through, you know, there's one metric on each of these little tiles, but one of the things that we didn't realize or didn't really, you know, sink in was for this particular one that's highlighted, different people care about different amounts. And so we ended up having to tailor this to work for all of our offices. Instead of just having one amount that worked for the majority of people or for, you know, our core offices, we actually ended up having to break out amount level so that all offices could use the tool, because otherwise it was essentially useless to them. We also played around with instructional text a lot. We try to put a lot of our stuff into info icons, and try as we might, we changed the color, the size, the backgrounds of these info icons, and no one ever saw them. Almost every single user completely ignored them in every round of testing on this tab and all the other tabs. So we ended up realizing, hey, those info icons, while they're useful, there are things that we're going to just have to drill in through training and through a more clear instructional help on what is now the home tab. So we've learned a lot of things during testing. The first big thing is we're not our users. While we can try to pretend that we're them, or think, okay, if I were a fundraiser, here's what I would do. We're actually not fundraisers unless you're building a dashboard for yourself. Once you get beyond that, you also got to think about how other people react to data. How comfortable are they with data visualization, and with interacting with filters and things like that. Because as a developer, you are not at the same level as some or all of your users. And the last thing to think about is Tableau is a website, and people, when you go to the Tableau server or Tableau online, people are going to think that everything that they see will react like a normal website would. And so we're not just designing data products, we're designing web and mobile tools. So we can't just build something pretty. We've got to be aware of how users generally interact on the web, what they expect based on their experiences on the web at large, and then build data products around that. So the one kind of low cost method that we could use to do a better job at building better products for our users is to incorporate usability testing. That helps us get insight into our users, you know, and how they approach our Tableau dashboard, so we can build better, more useful and usable products for them. So I have this list of resources. I'm going to copy and paste them into the chat. But if you have any questions, feel free to email me at rgohil@mit.edu. And that's it.
Well done. Thank you, Roshni. It's a lot of great information, and I think if nothing else, we have a lot of ideas on how we can more systematically release our products into the world, right? That we want to make sure that the work that we put in actually gets used.
Exactly. I mean, I think, and then that's the big thing. If you build something that people don't want to use, no surprise when there's no user or low user adoption. But if you build something that they do want to use, that they can use to achieve their goals, you're more likely to sort of up those adoption numbers and get people interested in that data and potentially other data and products that you build for them.
Yeah. All right. Next thing, we're a little behind schedule. We've got 10 minutes carved out for a quiz. Eric, you think we still got time for that?
Yep. So
Awesome.
there's a link in the chat. Go to www.kahoot.com. Let me share my screen. So can everybody see that?
Yep,
The Kahoot?
I see it.
Okay. So 955-9169 is the quiz. We'll wait for some players to join. We've got a $25 Tableau swag gift certificate to the winner. These questions are mostly related to analytics products within Tableau. Here we go. The winner, somebody's getting
Yeah, use your name, because we need to be able to know who to send the code to.
Well, Jim will contact you. He's got the gift certificates.
Let me see how bad I do. Although, yeah, I won't win.
Okay.
Eric, while the names come in, I made the mistake last time
Mhm.
by making the participants anonymous.
Yeah.
So everyone was
I've
somehow,
randomized the questions, but nothing else. Yeah.
yeah, so it was, instead of people's names, it was, Happy Giraffe and Confused. Not my cup of tea.
All right. Well, here we go. Three, two, one, and go. First question, which is an analytics feature in Tableau? You can choose multiple answers. Once you have selected your choices, click submit. All right, they're all right. I made that one easy to get started. All right, next up. Which version of Tableau introduced predictive analytics? Right. Now only two right. That's thinning it down. Which analytics product requires Tableau server? Just have Tableau desktop. You don't get to play with this very much. I've never figured out how to do security in it, so I've never played with it on my data sets. All right. And next, which analytics product requires a Salesforce subscription? I thought this one would be easy, but you won't learn this answer until the next part of the presentation. All right. Which is not a subheading on the Analytics tab in Tableau Desktop? All right, only 4 got it right. That was a hard one. And another multi-select. Which analytics products run within Tableau Desktop? I think with a multi-select, the more you get right, the more points you get. Not sure how it does it if you get them wrong.
We might need you to show us some of this stuff.
I've not played with Einstein Analytics, that's for sure. I don't have a, oh, here, one more. Which Tableau acquired empirical systems to create this analytics product? We were all done. Explain data, the answer to that one. And that's one that I've not played with.
I don't even know where explain data is.
Well, it came out in 2018. There you go, Peter. Congratulations, you won a $25 gift certificate for Tableau swag from the gift shop. So contact Jim so we can get you that in your ding. I will stop sharing.
Well done, everyone. Thanks, Eric. That was fun.
You're welcome.
So next up, we have Nathan. He is from Northeast Seattle and works 2 jobs, one at the University of Washington and the other at Tableau Software. At Tableau Software, he's the director of data science and ML, or was it machine learning products? Let us welcome Nathan. And Nathan, are you sharing your screen?
No, but I will go ahead and grab that right now. And yeah, good afternoon, folks. Really glad to be here. Are you able to see my first slide there?
You are good to go.
Perfect. Yeah, no, hello, everyone. Nathan Mannheimer. I'm a product director at Tableau. And like we're saying, I work on a couple of different areas, data science integrations and some of the ML products in Tableau. And today, that is largely focused on integrating the machine learning technology from Salesforce Einstein Discovery into Tableau, which is what I'm here to talk about. And yeah, cool to see the little quiz here, see that come up a little bit, something that we're really excited about and certainly going to be expanding a bit over the coming releases and years. I'm just going to give this forward-looking statement. Yeah, I'm going to touch on mostly things that are in the product today, but you know, make product and buying decisions based on what's out there and available now. Got a great introduction, but this is me. Product director on data science and ML products at Tableau. I also work in the statistics department at University of Washington, so supporting the and lecturing in the master's data science program there. I actually started Tableau on the sales side of the house. So I began my career there as what was then called a product consultant, now at Salesforce called a solutions engineer, but really hands-on out in the field with the product, and got so interested in wanting to set a direction there. I got really interested in product management and actually had an opportunity to become a PM at a Tableau customer. So I actually ended up leaving Tableau for a little bit and being on the customer side. And then actually came back to Tableau as a product manager and then product director in the last few years. And a little piece of trivia for me, I started my career actually teaching high school over in Japan. So I taught high school English and debate and a little bit of science in Ibaraki Prefecture, which is just north of Tokyo. And so my role in product at Tableau, I get to work on and be involved in some of the really cool and exciting things that we're building out. The organization that I'm actually in at Tableau is Augmented Analytics. And that actually is primarily focused on some of the cool features we were just talking about, things like explain data, automated statistics, ask data, natural language query and viz generation, automated insights. But I'm actually kind of the odd man out in that group, in that my primary focus is not those kind of AI insight experiences, but actually the business science and the data science parts of the world. And so that means both helping more people access machine learning, allowing more people to do more and really democratize model building and prediction consumption. And then also the data science side, helping people who are writing code, using partner products of ours, helping them plug Tableau into that workflow and making sure that they're finding use for Tableau, even if they're, say, building models or performing advanced analysis outside of Tableau. And probably number one most common tool that I work with in that space is Python, but certainly languages like R. We actually just released an integration for SageMaker, other partners as well. But mainly with the goal of supporting data science and acknowledging that data science is a very heterogeneous and oftentimes open source driven space. And so specifically on business science, that's kind of what I'm here to talk about today. And by business science, we mean opening, sort of democratizing, and that's a word that gets thrown around quite a bit, but opening access to the ability to go deeper and understand data quickly, more powerfully at larger scale, and use that understanding coupled with people's real knowledge of the domain, knowledge of their business, real knowledge of their problems and the state of the world around them, to build predictive models or build machine learning models that we can then plug into existing business intelligence, visual analytics, workflows to help really scale those out and bring predictions to people who really need them, and close this kind of last mile problem that we really see in a lot of data science today. And there's a statistic that gets thrown around. I've seen 70%, 80%, sometimes even as high as 90% data science projects don't make it into production. And you know, even if you sort of take the average of those, it's not a great statistic. It suggests to us that the technology is there. Building models is not hard. You can do that in 5 lines of Python code. But how do we help people actually organizationally orient around machine learning? And that involves a lot more than just model fitting. It involves good, clean, auditable sources of data. It involves ability to integrate multiple data sources together and semantically understand how they're connected. It certainly involves model fitting, but it involves bringing in knowledge and domain expertise from the people who are going to be stakeholders for that model, not just the analysts or the data scientists building the model. And then it means being able to, as soon as a model's fit and ready for production, plugging it into existing workflows that are scalable, sustainable, and allow people to actually get going and start using the model to change how they're operating very quickly. And so there's a lot of complexity that goes into that whole scale, but it's something that we at Tableau and Salesforce think that we're sort of well set up to support, because people are bringing data to Tableau now. They're cataloging and mapping that data. They're providing the metadata on it. They're working together as teams, and you have all kinds of different folks logging into Tableau, whether it's a business analyst, a data scientist, a frontline sales representative, all the way up to a CEO. All these people are logging in and are playing with, learning from, analyzing that data. And so we really have this value that data science and business science model building should be a team sport. And we think that we can help people bring the team together to really work and be effective. And that's now, of course, as I was saying, data science is an important part of this as well. And there's a real need to, on many use cases, deliver very high performance, very precise, very large scale models that are trained on really large data sets that are very highly parameterized. And we want to support that. But there's also a need for this wider scale kind of directional use of models as well, for things that maybe aren't as precision focused, but where there's more value of bringing in domain knowledge quickly and getting a model into production that's going to improve the process rapidly, and then can be iterated on and improved over time. So I think this is a fairly good analogy. With data science, we'd say these are the exact coordinates that we're trying to go for, and we need to be very precise. With business science, our goal is maybe we trade a little bit of the exact precision for the speed and the accessibility of bringing more people, in this case, to go with this analogy, more drivers or walkers into the process and help them feel like they can get a start and really use the things that they bring to the table, sometimes that data science teams don't have, like that domain knowledge, to really be successful. And this is kind of just a general breakdown of how we see different types of use cases. Some things like route optimization, certainly financial and medical healthcare analysis, really important ad or ticket price optimization. Something like if we're doing internet ads at scale, a fraction of a percent can translate into millions of dollars in gained or lost revenue. And those types of problems require really bespoke, highly tuned systems. But for things like looking at and anticipating attrition, internally or of customers, predicting on-time delivery and potentially reacting if we suspect that something's not going to be delivered on time, looking at deal close time, development, deployment faults is another one that we've seen. These kind of more broader, much wider scale use cases that are more at the org or the team level sometimes can be, and certainly can be strategic, but there are many more of these, and they can be served by this more quick, ready for production approach that's really focused on the outcome that can get something working and then iterate and improve. And so this is where Einstein Discovery comes in. And Discovery is a machine learning platform and technology developed in Salesforce that's really designed to be accessible to this wider audience of people, to business analysts, to business teams who have very business-focused questions. And it's designed to allow them to translate those questions into machine learnable problems and build a model, better understand their data through automated insights, build models that are designed to be accessible to a wide range of people, really avoiding types of models, say like a deep neural network, where the model is very highly parameterized and can be harder for non-specialists to interpret. We want to make sure that there are things that we can understand about the model for everyone who's involved, everyone who's a stakeholder, and then can get those models into production with the push of a button and monitor them, track them, see how they're performing, and plug those into processes, whether it's in CRM or now in Tableau and in dashboards, data flows, the way that people are consuming visual analytics today. And so these are kind of the principles really summarized up for discovery, a guided and automated experience, things like feature engineering, feature selection, model tuning and performance improvement. All of that is handled in an automated way that's designed to support people who have questions about data, know their data, but might not identify themselves as a data scientist or somebody who has a really strong background or experience in statistical modeling. Get things into production and running very quickly, and be flexible and explainable. So really iterate on different types of data, generate predictions that are going to be explainable and models that are going to be explainable, so that whenever somebody who's a stakeholder has to answer a question, why are you making this decision? Why does it look this way or that? They can look and understand and really see visual representations that help them see how their data are driving the model, which is driving the predictions. And so these, again, are some of our real design principles for both discovery and then bringing discovery into Tableau. And this is a value that is really all the way up across everything that Salesforce is doing: trust, and ethical, transparent AI, and certainly something that is a major factor in our work as well. How do we design product experiences and features that are allowing people to use this technology, which can be very powerful, but can also present a lot of pitfalls. And there's a lot of statistical thinking that is very important in being effective and building useful models that are not going to cause harm, or that are not going to encode or really double down on bias that exists in running already existing processes or data. And those are really important. And so it's a very kind of core to our thinking principle. How do we design built-in systems, things that will alert people when they're potentially leaking biased information into their model? But also, how do we design a product that will encourage creativity and exploration in understanding the data, understanding the model, so that things that may be a little bit more subtle or not so obvious or really not detectable by heuristics in software, but may make sense or may jump out to people who are knowledgeable about the data, knowledgeable about the world, that they can factor those that very human and institutional knowledge into the model building process as well, and avoid or certainly very actively reduce areas where there are the potential for those kind of problems. And by bringing this into Tableau, which is what I'm really excited to be able to show some examples of, we allow people to use these systems that are delivering these kinds of models and plug it right into Tableau using the same principles, without having to write code, without having to really build a custom bespoke pipeline or interface. Anytime you can build a Tableau dashboard, you can plug in predictions and scale those up using stuff like server and online. And so there are kind of 3 different first round integrations that we've built to cover a couple different types of use cases. On the one hand, we see people really interested in real-time predictions. This is something where data may be changing very quickly. Maybe there were too many different possibilities to pre-compute all of them. Being able to try different scenarios or different inputs in real time is important. So we've built out a dashboard extension and a calculation integration. And then sometimes we want to be able to bulk score data, to write predictions into a data set, and then write those tables of data into a database or into a published data source. And that's where bringing in Tableau Prep and the integration that we've done there is a big part of that as well. And so I think I've got slides, but I think it's actually probably cooler to just actually take a look and jump in. And so I'm going to walk through a couple things here. First of all, I'm going to actually show building a predictive model. And this is just sort of illustrating, it's a relatively small data set, but this will show us what that process is like. And then I'll show consuming it across the different Tableau products. And so here I am, and I'm actually going to be, in this case, impersonating the role of a colleague of mine, Robert Brill, Bobby. And I'm going to be quickly uploading a data set and then fitting a model to that data. So I'm going to click here in Einstein Discovery. So I'm in my browser in what's called the Analytics Studio, which is where I can interact with Discovery. I'm going to create a data set. And I can connect to different types of data, external databases, data in Salesforce. I can build data pipelines, and I can actually upload a CSV directly. So I'll do that. And I'm going to use this user retention data set. And here I can just see a quick kind of summary of the fields that I'm bringing in this data set, and click upload. And in just a second here, I'll have this available for use. You may see down below, I've done this a couple times before, but now I've actually created this data set and just have some information about it. And my next step is I can create a discovery story. And so here I'm using Einstein Discovery, and the way I can frame up this problem, I'm going to be fitting a machine learning model, but I'm sort of asking a business question. So something I might be interested in, is the account going to convert? And I want true. So I'm very interested in understanding, predicting will the account convert or not, but also understanding what drives conversion equals true up. So what are the factors in the data that contribute to this positive outcome of the customer account converting? And I can choose insights only, which will just do descriptive statistics, or I can do insights and a model and get this predictive model I can reuse. And then I could also, if I wanted to, choose automated feature engineering, which is what I'm going to do, but I could also go in and manually select fields that I may want to exclude if there are some that I know aren't going to be useful. And then I would just click create story, and the model has started fitting. In the interest of our time here, I'm actually going to jump back and find a previous iteration of this to look through. And so this is what I would see as soon as the model is done fitting. And we can see this one's still chugging along, a little over half done. But this would be what the finished product looks like. And I can see what are key drivers in the data set. And we can see these start to look like combinations of fields. So when somebody has completed the basic trailhead training and they're an enterprise, that's a strong driver towards them actually converting. But when we see when our account team is not engaged, or unfortunately, when they're in the commercial data or commercial business type, those are things that tend to drive the likelihood of converting down according to the model. So we can see maybe we don't do so well in the commercial sector. And if our account team's not engaged, is a strong indicator that the customer is likely not going to convert. And this is where the domain understanding becomes important, because I can see that, and there are a number of different ways to interpret this. And it could mean that if we don't get the team engaged, the customer is less likely to convert. It could also mean that the account team doesn't engage if they know the customer is unlikely to convert. And so we can still bring that knowledge and understanding of the world, but I can see what are the drivers that actually exist in the data presented very clearly. So that account team engagement seems to be a pretty strong indicator. If I look at customer types as well, we see enterprise converts at a very strong rate compared to SMB or commercial. Other sort of automated insights that are surfaced to us, these are sort of these automated features that are generated, combinations of different information about the customers. And then we can actually go in and start to look at the predictive model itself. So I can start to understand if I, say design a scenario where they've gone as far as deploying a model, they're in enterprise, they're maybe in high tech, we can see what the model would predict, as well as understanding kind of the key drivers of that, and even sort of these presentations of the different key driving features that allow us to go from the baseline overall probability in the entire training set to this particular sort of aggregate prediction that I've generated, which is a customer who has deployed a model from enterprise in the high tech industry. We can predict they're substantially likely to convert, about 74% probability according to the model, and that these features were the most predictive or sort of most important to the model in making that decision in the value going up. And these ones, being high tech, it seems like is actually a little bit of a less likely industry overall. These are things that brought the prediction down. And then I can actually see the model. These are starting to be statistics and information that are a little bit more for the analyst or the data scientist. Things like the AUC score, the prediction threshold that we've automatically picked. If I was understanding if it was a rare class problem or not, I can look at the distribution of the variable that we're predicting on and start to get even more information about the model. Look at things like the stability is described in the cross-validation, and actually even get down to the coefficients of the model. And so this is a binomial, so it's a classification problem, and we're using a GLM, which is just an extension of the linear model. So these are essentially the beta coefficients of the various features, including some of these automatically generated engineered ones. We can look at things like how we arrived at this sort of optimal prediction threshold, and even start to sort of game around and see what would happen if I changed it. Oops, and I apparently just got logged off here, which is interesting. If I was then ready to deploy, if I felt like this was good, I can deploy the model here. I can also even collaborate with data scientists and a data science team. So I can take everything that's being done here, all the feature transformations and actual predictive code from the model, and export this to R and share it as well with another team or team members. And then once I deploy the model, so I'm going to select it as a new prediction definition. We have a capability as well where you can have what's called a prediction definition. This is sort of an endpoint that you call to generate new predictions. And you can actually put multiple models behind that. So you can build essentially a hierarchical model where, say, you have different sales regions, the West Coast, Midwest, South, and Northeast. You can have 4 different models, one for each region, behind a single definition, and it will automatically send the sample that you're predicting on next to the right model, even though they're all behind one predictive endpoint. And so I'm going to connect it not to an existing Salesforce object. I'm not going to segment. If there are things in the data I can change, like say account engagement, I can select those here, and then the model will recommend actions that I can take to improve the outcome, but I'll leave that aside for now. And then when I hit deploy, we will put the model into production, and now it's actually available for use. And so if I come back to this Analytics Studio and go to my model manager, I can see all of my different models that are available, including this one that I've just deployed. Really no predictions on it yet because I just put it into production, but have all this information here. And if I go to settings, this is now where we're talking a little bit more Tableau stuff. I can see this option here, create Tableau table calculation. And I've got this pre-written Tableau calc that I can just copy and drop into Tableau. So I wanted to do that. And now I'm actually going to jump over into Tableau. And here we are in Tableau Desktop. And I'm first going to look at what's called an analytics extension. And so to configure this is the type of integration that actually my team built for this overall business science project. And it's in the Tableau calculation language. But first I would go to Help, Settings and Performance, and Manage Analytics Extension Connection. And we can see I'm already connected to Einstein Discovery. If not, I would go in and I can actually just disable this for a second and go back. These are the different types of analytics extensions that we have. So TabPy, Python, Einstein, RServe, and the generic analytics extensions API, which can be extended to almost anything. I'm going to pick Discovery and enable, and I just need to authenticate again. And now I've done that. And now I'm all connected. And so we see, again, a little cooking show magic here. I've actually put this calc in already, but if I was doing the same thing, I could just paste in what I just created, but I'm going to undo that for now since I have this sort of formatted nicely to see. And then I have these calcs on the viz here, and we are actually taking in real-time data from this live data connection. We are passing it via the calculated field to this prediction definition. and returning the predictions from the model. We can see the predicted engagement score here on the right. I'm actually using the calc twice, once on color and once on rows. And this is all interactive. And so this is being computed in real time. And I'm seeing these predictions. We're calling out to the deployed endpoint in Salesforce. And I've made these part of my visualization here. And then, like I said, there's the other integration path, which is through what was called a dashboard extension. And so this is the analytics extension through calculations. The dashboard extension looks a little bit like this. I have one here on my dashboard. And as I select different segments of the dashboard, I can actually see sort of aggregated predictions about the subset that I've selected. So this bar summarizes 1,600 rows of data. We can see of those customers who've deployed a model, there's an on average 70% chance of probability of retention. And these are the key drivers from the model, the things that the model is using to bring that value up and some that are bringing it down. And then even suggestions on how to improve it, factors in the data that tend to correlate to a better outcome that I've said maybe are changeable in the overall sort of workflow. And we can see deployed model has a pretty high probability. If they've just clicked the getting started template though, we think they're probably a little bit less likely to convert, or maybe substantially less likely to convert. So not as solid there. So we want to, and we can see this sort of augmentation, this insight in our data. Deployed model correlates much more strongly to customer success and eventual conversion. And then finally, here we have Tableau Prep. And like I said, sometimes we want to write predictions in bulk into Prep. And so I've got my flow here. Again, same data set. I'm actually combining two different parts of it in one here. And I'm just going to add a new node, which is the prediction node. And I just need to, I've actually already authenticated, but I need to select my models here. And this is a dev build, so there may be a little hiccup. See if I can get this working one more time.
We'll trim this section in post so it looks faster.
All right. It looks like I might be having an authentication issue here. So yeah, like I said, this is available in production. The build that I'm using here is a dev one. So sometimes there are little hiccups that get introduced as things get iterated on. But essentially, with this prediction node in here, it normally should be almost instantaneous, but we essentially are able to, let me try one more thing here, just see if I put it in this different place. Yeah, anyway, we would be able to see the different models that are available, plug one in and actually write those predictions into the prep flow. And then when we output it, we can of course output to a file like a CSV, to a published data source in Tableau, or even to a table in a running database. So we can essentially make predictions part of a data flow, write those in, and then consume them as we would any other data in Tableau to visualize, explore, and analyze. So that's essentially the story. And like I said, these are all kind of different routes, being able to plug things in dashboard, in calcs, in dashboard extensions, and in prep flows. Really make predictions part of the sort of the workflow and the analysis in any Tableau dashboard that you can then scale up and scale out to anyone who consumes them, and across all kinds of things, mobile, the tablets, browser, desktop, all of those you can now plug in predictions from Tableau and from Einstein Discovery. And this is really just the first step on our journey. We're certainly planning to expand this capability, allow more of the process to be done in Tableau over time. And we're very excited for this future and to really to bring out the concept of business science, to allow more people to get involved in using machine learning and predictions to improve their business.
Cool, thanks, Nathan. There was a question in the chat. You could tackle that through chat. I want to make sure we're keeping our meeting going with 10 minutes remaining.
Nick,
And
just
probably
one,
also
Nick,
put some
just one
chat too.
quick point here.
Sure.
What we saw is brand new in 2021.1, and it may not have come across just right, but understand that you, and I'm going to say the wrong word, Nathan. You can jump in here. You also have to have a license to Salesforce to use the feature that you just saw. Is that correct, Nathan?
Yeah, so all new capability in 21.1. With the licensing, so there is a specific license for predictions in Tableau. Also, if you're already a Salesforce customer, it's something you may already have with your Einstein license, but it is a separate license from just kind of the base Tableau licensing.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my questions. And I guess as a follow-up to that, is there an Einstein Analytics trial, or is there an Einstein Analytics public that we could try before we buy?
Yeah, I don't think there's a public version, but there is a, I believe, if you talk to your Tableau account team, you can get a sort of like a trial or like sandbox org to play around with.
Gotcha.
And then I saw somebody, the question about converted equals true. So there's a field in the data set, converted, and it can have two values, true or false. And that essentially says, did this customer ultimately buy, or did they were they converting from a lead to a paying customer? And so when we're looking at that, we're actually splitting it out into two fields, converted equals true, so the customers that did convert, and false, the ones who didn't, and looking at how those different things correlate to other variables in the data set. Which is sort of that descriptive piece.
Nice. Let's see. All right, I'm gonna share. Listen to me. All right. So we've got this PowerPoint, couple of action items to wrap up before we open it up to the group. Be sure if you have any interest at all in presenting, being one of our guest speakers, or I guess really group member speakers. We love to have people from our own Nashville community sharing with us. Please go to the link that was in the PowerPoint that attached and fill that out. We'd love to hear from you, both in the form and in the forum here online. And then also, again, that by midnight tonight, please submit your question for Francois, the bigwig of product at Tableau, and the combined TUG meeting that's happening May 24th.
Did you post that link for Francois?
I will. Like I put the entire PowerPoint in the chat for people to download, but I can grab that URL specifically.
Okay.
Here, I'll just get it from here. There you go, everyone. And then, Jim, you want to cover what's coming in May, or just let people read it for a moment?
There you go. I'll remember to turn my mic back on. Coming in May next, the end of next month, Tim Cady is going to talk about using regular expressions. And I don't know about, I see Peter nod his head over there like, yeah, that's a topic. That's a topic that is like a 30-minute topic, and boy, it's something that I really don't understand. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then there's this guy named Eric who's going to talk about building relationship models. And these are the kind that are part of the new model inside Tableau. And he's going to tell us how that actually works. So I'm looking forward to both of those. So thanks, Nick.
No worries. Thank you. Now we're opening the floor. Anybody have anything for the good of the group? Questions that you've been debating whether to ask? Ideas on topics? It's jobs you want to get, jobs you want to give. Peter, I see you're unmuted.
Yeah, I actually have an opening on my team for a data analyst, so I don't know if that's, but I'm in New Jersey, so I don't know if that's an option. But one thing that we've done recently, which was interesting, two things actually. One of them was row level security. So I don't know if that's of interest for people. And the other thing that we did was using some of the new spatial data types, I guess, and doing a join using an intersection, which was an interesting
Well, Peter,
solution
you're
we
going to
did.
want to, as far as the second one's concerned, you're going to want to be, and I don't have the schedule in front of me, but Sarah Battersby is going to speak sometime within the next couple months on the exact topic that you're talking about. That and the new layering and some of the capabilities that have changed inside Map.
And I will just say, having seen that presentation, it's a pretty great one from
Well,
Sarah, so not to be missed.
Sarah has never given a bad presentation. She is just fabulous.
And
Hey,
will
Peter,
you
this is
accept-
Jennifer from Nashville. I had a few questions about row level security. You just mentioned it. Is there a way, and do you have an email that I can contact you from and just understand, because we're implementing it. I just want to make sure we're being as efficient as possible.
Sure. I mean, we,
And our group, I don't know if it was the last meeting or the meeting before, Eric did a presentation on row level security. I will make sure we get, we'll put that YouTube link.
It was February's meeting. It's out on YouTube.
Here, I will find that.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Are those YouTube links, like, where's the best place to find them?
We're pretty good and we'll get better about putting them in the event itself, like after the event's over. So if you look at our previous events, the YouTube link should be there, the one that corresponds to each event.
Mhm.
And we put them on our community page.
But yeah, here we go. So this is the one in question for February.
Okay, awesome.
I mean, between that and Peter, you should be in great shape.
I don't know if we're experts, but we did implement it for our Salesforce. So definitely show you some of that.
Yeah. And Peter, you know, I don't know if your New Jersey opportunity is remote only or no.
No, it's we're actually planning on going back to the office in September. So part-time. I think we're going to do 3 remote, 2 on-site.
Yeah.
They're still trying to figure that out.
No worries. I just, if it was, I would, in fact, you know what? Somebody on this group might be wanting to relocate to New Jersey. Feel free to put the job rec link in the chat.
And Peter, to that point, I'm not familiar with the TUG group up in New York, but I'm sure there is one. I am familiar with the TUG group in Boston, and I know that's a dreaded term for anybody in the New York area, but that Boston TUG reaches Maine to Atlanta. So you might want to reach out to them and post with
Thank
them.
you.
So.
I appreciate that. Yeah, that sounds great. Now, this seems like a very strong TUG group here in Tennessee.
Thanks.
Thanks.
I'm going to stop the recording.